Is everyone ready to go? It'd be good if we can. No? Okay. We'll stand for the karakia. Whakataka te ho. Great, so we've got Councillors Goff, Harrison Hunt and Donovan on Zoom. And I don't think we've got any other apologies, have we? Everyone else looks like they're here. Great, okay, declarations of interest. There are a few there. Scandrett, Barber and Goff on Te Kaha Streets. The Deputy Mayor and Councillor Peters on item 12. Councillors Scandrett and Barber on VO, and myself and Sarah on item 14 and 17. The previous minutes, I'm happy to move. Jake's happy to second. All in favour? Against? No? On the minutes? Okay.
On the conflicts?
Oh, we don't move the conflicts, we just note them, but yeah.
But you're moving everything together.
Oh, sorry, yeah, no, we don't move.
Take a breath, see.
Yeah.
Between sentences.
We don't move conflicts. Okay, so we've passed the minutes. David, there are no public forums? No. There are no deputations by appointment. There are no petitions. So that'll get us to our first item. Peter Ryan, item 7. Thank you.
Deja vu all over again. Right. This is the key organisational results. They're very steady with previous months. In fact, they're probably what we're looking at for year end. And look, we're given that it's been an exceptionally difficult year, there's a lot of green in there. Levels of service, watch list projects, planning for future capital projects, and OPEX budgets all green. I'm probably not going to dwell on the detail of them, but maybe go off on just a little observation about the year to come. For a lot of those targets where we're achieving them, and look, a win is a win, green is green, but I'm just sort of putting up a little flag to say some of those greens are thin. Levels of service, 1% above target. Capital planning, 1%. OPEX, 1.5 mil out of 675. What I'm trying to say is we're looking ahead at the mechanisms we've got in place for the year to come. We've got mechanisms around accountability and performance reporting, and we're going to try to maintain a strong focus on that so that none of those things slip and they actually go forward and up rather than slip backwards, because the margins are thin. Again, stressing a difficult year, a win is a win, but we're just looking to the future on making sure we keep that focus there on achieving what we've got. So that's just like a cautionary note looking forward. Other than that, the results are extremely consistent with the last 6 months. I've never seen a set that has been so steady for so long, which is good because that means there's no volatility in it. And our forecasting is turning out to be very accurate. So at that point, I really would open it up, I guess, to questions.
Thank you, Peter. That's really useful. Are there any questions for Peter? Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. I was just a little bit concerned with the noise responsiveness. I mean, it's sort of an ongoing issue in my area where people are quite frustrated, and I'm not sure whether it's the response time or the inability to actually control the activity. But given that we're not meeting our KPI, and it says that we're going to work with the contractor to put steps in place, I just wondered, would we be able to just get, a bit like we've done in the past with like water leaks or with odour reports where we're not meeting our KPIs, would we be able to get a sense of a breakdown of where the noise complaints are coming from and whether there's any particular area that's not being responded to?
I'm sure that can be done, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'll come back to the next meeting with some feedback from the head off.
Yeah, okay. I think that would be good. Yeah, that would be cool.
But the purpose of understanding the areas would be what?
So to understand if there's areas of where we're getting complaints where we're not meeting the KPI, like with the target, obviously it's quite hard to see if there's a geographic area, for example, that's repeatedly not meeting the KPI.
Okay.
So it's to understand if there's issues. I mean, the issue I'm aware of in my area is obviously the industrial type of complaints that people are repeatedly logging. But yeah, I just think it'd be good just to have a little bit more understanding about what is being done to.
Okay.
To clarify, just so it's not like going to noise complaints about parties and things, it's actually the ongoing industrial noises.
Well, I
rather
don't
than-
know. That's the point. So what I'm trying to understand is, like, if someone's having a party and armour guard or noise control responds straight away and they're meeting the KPIs around the parties, but they're not meeting the KPIs around the industrial area, or is it just kind of, like, is it on the peninsula?
Okay, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
Peninsula has a separate
Thing
response
for-
time
yeah.
because of the
Cool.
distances.
So you're happy to take that away?
Yep, got it.
Great. Anything else from anyone? Tim?
Yeah, just a quick one. Where it comes to overall regional sports organisations satisfaction with the standard of city councils provided sports surfaces, I've gone out and had a look at a few, and the rain has been horrendous, and so it's kind of like setting staff up for something that's impossible to do because it's just saturated. But I'm just wondering if we could just get a note back from the parks just to say that they are working with them and looking at them, because I think it's, if you looked at that, it's kind of unfair. I think anyway. It's so if we just could get a comment from staff on that.
Yep, will do. Just worth adding a little context there that the survey will have been from back in February.
Okay, yeah.
So it may not entirely be the recent rain.
Okay.
That's the factor there.
I do know though that the last season they were having trouble with mowing because of the moisture and the heat, and so it's an ongoing thing, I think.
It's been two wet, cool summers in a row.
Yeah. So yeah, I just don't want to set our staff up for failure.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Tim. Tyler, and then we'll...
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Gotcha.
Yep.
Cool. Kia ora, Peter. Hey, just one quick question around the deliverability of the non-key projects at 77%. Can you talk a little bit on that as to why it would be at 77? And is that, how does that look to last season around delivering those non-key projects for comparison?
Look, I can, but you're going to have Richard here very shortly doing a specific breakdown on capital. And look, honestly, he knows about 10 times more than I do. I think it would be smarter to hear his view on that specific question than mine.
Cool. No, that's cool.
Do that in the next one, next one, Tyler. That'd be cool.
Yep.
Okay, I mean, I guess the focus of this one will really be next month. I would have thought when we get to year end, and then we can obviously feed that into how we look at the LTP as well. So, Mark looks like he's happy to move it. Kelly's happy to second it. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you, Peter. That's great. Russell, do you want to come up and do your finance report, please?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning, councillors and Mr. Mayor. So this is the financial report for May. So at the high level, we've got a surplus as at the end of May of about $13.9 million, and we're forecasting a surplus at year end by $1.5 million. So what's driving the position? Well, to be honest, the messaging's been pretty consistent as the last few months, really. On the revenue side, higher interest revenues driven by the higher rates, rate revenues. That's the growth component of the rate strike, higher than anticipated. Subvention receipts were higher, as was the trans waste dividend coming through. Also, rec and sport revenues have been higher than anticipated, and we've also had higher building consent volumes going through. The downside of that one, though, is we've had incurred higher costs going through to offset that a bit. So yes, so it's looking at the expenditure side, what's been moving. Debt servicing costs have been higher. Again, it's the offset of the extra revenue, but overall we're ahead of that, but still that's there. Three Waters, higher operating costs, and I'll come back to that again in a minute. And lower capitalisation of staff time, so that's staff putting their time to projects. That's been a bit lower than budgeted. A chunk of that has been more leave than anticipated being taken, a mixture of annual leave, people taking advantage of that availability, being able to travel and do things now, as well as there's been some leave without pay in there as well. And then the building consent, additional resourcing costs, like I mentioned before. Savings within operating costs, strategic planning. So there's been significant saving in there, about $1.3 million, mainly around vacancies in that space, and grants and levies at end of May. We hadn't dispersed all those, but that's forecast to come down by the end of the year. And Crown funding for the water transition was higher in May, but again, that's more timing. And come the end of the year, that will be more in line with budget. So, like I said, last month, we forecasted a forecast operating surplus of about $1.7 million. That's down slightly by 1.5. So there's a mixture of things in that space. In the three waters, there was significant movement in there, and a number of reasons. One was the revenues, excess water billing. We had anticipated getting more revenues coming through there, but there had been a particularly wetter autumn than had been anticipated. So people were using less water. And improvements in transportation, recreation, sports, and regulatory compliance. There's ongoing work in both transportation and Three Waters and across the board, but particularly focusing on those areas, making sure that we have capitalised everything that we should. So we're looking through the OPEX costs, the maintenance costs, just to make sure that we've captured that well. And there's been some movement in there. So overall, that's why we're sitting at the 1.5. And I just made the point in like the report 4.2 there, when you're talking about an overall expenditure of just under $678 million, to have a forecast of 1.5 is whisper thin, but that's been consistently where we're sitting. So we're as confident as we can be that that'll be the year-end position. Just touching on capital, as Peter has said, we've got the capital guys behind me ready to do this. But just in an overall position, the forecast has been increased slightly. It was 390, now it's just under $405 million. So that's about $65 million lower than budget. That's offset significantly two main areas: Te Kaha, which is ahead of budget by almost $68 million, and Parakuri, which is below budget in timing by about $3.6 million. So overall, that's about a 1.6 in the total program. But like I say, the main reason for that is the additional and ahead of time costs in Te Kaha. And on the Treasury space, I just report that all risks within policy limits, and there's been no breaches as at the end of May or projected over for the next month. So happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for that. It's always a useful update. Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. I was just interested in 6.7.2 on page 36, the lower reserve drawdowns, and you said mainly due to some development contributions unable to be drawn down at present and set aside to fund future works. I was just trying to kind of understand that. Just to kind of give you some background, a little bit more context to the question, one of the things I understand is that we can't build new reserves and growth areas because we don't have the funding, but we can't get the funding unless we've got the project on budget. So we get stuck in a kind of, chicken and egg situation. Are you able just to give us a little bit more understanding about 6.72? Or if not, can we get just some understanding of what that means?
I'm happy to answer as best as I can.
Cool.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair. So the development contributions are based on that. When we do a project, there'll be an increased level of service. Okay, so we've got to make the thing bigger or put more works in to cope for the growth of people coming through. And so the development contribution is a charge made to the developers for that anticipated extra infrastructure that we have to put in place. So that's so that money is used to fund that growth part of projects. Now, whether the project starts then or starts earlier and we have to borrow it in advance, or we've got the money to go ahead and do that. That's all relative timing. So what this comment is saying is that we've actually got the money sitting in our overall funding, but the work hasn't started. So we haven't drawn down the work. We haven't drawn down the funds to do that work. That's what that paragraph is identifying. Yeah.
And what's the risk that we have around that in regards to development agreements, consents? I mean, is it intersections that aren't going to get upgraded in Preston's, for example, because we haven't started the work, but we've got the money, or?
Look, I'm not sure of the.
Yeah, it's okay to take that up. I mean, if it's something that the team could perhaps have a think about after the meeting, I wouldn't expect Russell to get down into the details.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if there's any sort of high level kind of risk around that fund not being expended. That was kind of.
Yeah, no, I think it might be something that's worth. You know, are you guys able to go and reflect on it and come back to Yanni? Yeah, cool. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Kelly. Yep.
Yeah, just thanks, Russell. I was just wondering if you could help me understand the little graph / table on 7.2 about which is on page 37.
Yes, certainly. So that's saying our overall borrowings, where that is. So the top line is the gross borrowings. So it's saying this time last year we had borrowed $2.1 billion. Currently we're sitting at $2.267 billion, and we're projecting will be slightly less than that end of June. The next line is advances to related parties, so that's mainly in the CCHL group. Okay. So we've borrowed and then on-lent the monies. That's what that's saying. So the last line is saying, okay, so what's the net position to Christchurch City Council? So that's what that is. It says last year we had $1.457 billion. Currently we're sitting at 1.3, and we're projecting to be 1.437 at year end. So overall, the red part in red on the far right, bottom right hand corner, is saying that our projected borrowings at year end is $20 million down on where we started the year.
Okay. For an organisation of our size, is that a, you know, where would that fit in the spectrum of in terms of borrowing? You know, is that considered high overall?
There's a number of factors in play. So what is high? So long as the funding can be serviced, then that's not high. And what are you using the funding for? So council uses it for capital projects that have long life. So, you know, our assets in a commercial sense, you would use borrowing to fund assets that are going to produce revenue ongoing. So in a way we do, because we'll rate, but, you know, our capital works that we do, we bury most of them, you know, and but they provide value for many years. So that's why we use borrowing as a mechanism to do that. As to are we high? Look, I'm not sure we would sit overall. We would be we'd be in the top 3 borrowers if we're not the top 2 through the LGFA, where we get most of our funding from. Auckland, of course, outstrip everybody significantly. But we would be right up there, yeah. And also because, you know, there was a lot of work done in the post-earthquake, you know, a lot of capital expenditure spent to get things going as best as possible. And I understand, like, I wasn't here then, but prior to that, the debt was quite minimal. So, yeah.
So is there a plan to reduce that over time? Because I'm just looking at 7.4, the graph on 7.4, and just trying to understand that. So it looks like our borrowing requirements are going to step up in the next few years, but then be reduced in the subsequent years. Is that the effects of Takaha and Parakiore?
Through you, Mr. Chair, again. Yeah, that's significantly 24, 25, 26. That's Takaha sitting in there at that time. When we set the long-term plan, you know, that graph will be changed again as to what we're going to what council decides to spend and how that's going to be funded. So there'll be more grey lines. There'll be more clarity around that. So the way we manage our exposure to interest rate movements, and there's been quite a lot of recent times, is we go out or fix as much as we can going without overdoing it, and to maximise interest rates that we've got now without subjecting council to the fluctuations as much as possible. So that's why there's some of those green bits further out. We've put borrowings out and grab the rates at that time. Yeah.
So if we chose long term to look to pay down as much debt as possible, how long would it take us without selling any assets to achieve, a much lower level of debt, say like, a couple of $100 million or something like that? Would that take years and years, given our current, income?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's an interesting discussion. So it depends on the level of rates that you want to set. I mean, that's pretty much our income level. Income comes through that. So if we want to repay down debt faster and we're not selling anything to do that, then pretty much rates is our revenue, if you can call it that, source to do that. So it depends on the level. I wouldn't be advising to do that too fast, because there's a reason that you use debt as a funding mechanism, a thing called intergenerational equity. So as you know, it's the cost of having the asset, whatever it is paid for the people who are using it. And so we have the rule, I think it's 30 years as a repayment schedule. So that's anticipated the length of the time for the asset. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for going into that for me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
But certainly that'll be a significant part of the discussion as we form the LTP. Yeah.
No, they're really, really good questions, Kelly. That's brilliant. Okay, so I'm happy to move that. Phil's happy to second it. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you, Russell. It's always a really good report, and it'll be good to see where we get to at financial year end.
It will be. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, Richard, do you want to come up and do the capital program report, please?
Cool. Kia ora, everybody. I'm filling in for Andrew, who has winged his way across to the UK for 4 weeks leave. Just want to highlight a couple of things in the capital program performance report. We adjusted, first of all, the overall forecast pretty much to match the project manager's forecast at 405, 405 million for the core program delivery this year. So that's up from our previous sort of aiming point forecast of 390 million. It would appear on today's numbers that we're doing very well towards that target, and we've already spent 400 million on the capital program this year. So we're well within reach of that 405, and there's a good chance of exceeding it, actually. Of the 100 million that we were effectively delivering this month, we've got 53 out of the 60 for the core program, and we've got about 20 million out of the 40 million forecasted for Te Kaha. So that adds up to the 100 million that we're forecasting for this month. Otherwise, the other projects, so Matatiki and the Court Theatre Performing Arts, are doing really well. Three Waters and Transport are performing well against their year-end budgets and should have quite a strong finish. So that's good news on that front. I guess the only other points to notice within the report that although some of the pressures and risks that are there with global supply chains and resource constraints are tight, we're working to manage those risks going into the new year as we flick over at the end of the month into next year's program, which you just approved yesterday. Great, thanks, Sam.
Great, thank you, Richard, and welcome along, Paul, as well. Does anyone, or Tyler, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, just referring back to the, I'm just trying to pull it up. The performance report, item 7, and it says deliver non-key projects at 77% with the target of 85. can you talk to me on why it would be 77, and is that close to last year's KPI results?
Cool. Yeah. Thanks,
around
Tyler.
this season?
So we have two major figures within the capital program. The one that gets the most attention, of course, is how we're delivering against our total budget. But we also have the milestone target as well. And so that one there is measured against setting a baseline for delivery of the projects and then measuring against that baseline. We've got a target for the watch list projects, and then we've got another target for the non-watch list projects. Last year we were at about 84% for the non-watch list projects against a service delivery level aiming point of 85%, so we almost made our target. This year that one's dropped back to, like you say, in the mid 70s or mid to high 70s. So that's disappointing, but that aligns with the pressures that the projects have been under from the global supply chain, from resource constraints. So when you see a drop in delivery, it's not surprising that we see that slight softening against the baseline measurement. So it's another focus for the new year to get that delivery milestone metric back up to where it needs to be.
Great. Andre.
Thank you. The Ngā Punawai car park for the Netzel Centre says here completion December 2023. Am I right in understanding that's opening in stages?
Pass you across to Andrew for that one.
Sorry, so your question was, is it opening in stages?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Netzel Centre's on track as I understand.
It's not 100% confirmed, but the building itself and the car parking that's required under the consent to open the building will be completed first. We're progressing the entire project currently. The only thing that will the determining factor will be what weather we face over the upcoming months.
Yeah.
So the building will be functional and operational and open in a manner that meets its consent, and then the additional car parking that we're doing that was really to address the the historic concerns will be completed.
So what parking is required for the consent?
Off the top of my head, it was about 123 or 4 car parks.
So an additional 123 car parks will be open by the time the Netzel Centre
At the
opens.
same time the building opens.
Okay. And that's all the consent required.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But then the remainder is expected to be completed by Christmas.
Correct.
That's what you're saying. Okay, cool. The Wigram Hayton intersection, when will we see options? Do you know? And will they go to community board first?
Sorry, I wouldn't be able to answer that detail. We'd need Lynette for that one. And she
Can we
was
just
here
take that as an Can we just take that as an action to come back to Andre on?
Yep,
Thank you very
that'd be
much.
great.
Great, thank you. Tim, and then Mark, then Yanni. Yep.
Thank you. I've asked this before, and I brought it up in the informal with Lynn and the chair. Could we have Te Kaha and Parakori separated when we're reporting on them? Because one is ours, which is our responsibility, and the other one, for want of a better term, we are a partner of, which we have very little control of. So if that's possible, because one is well and truly over budget and behind time, and I don't think it's,
Yeah, no, that's right. So Parakaiori will separate out. The council's payments actually are actually completing this year at the end of this financial year. So there's actually very little financial commitment going forward for the council. But you can see on page 79 on the watch list, obviously we have the projects separated out. So page 79 has Te Kaha, and page 80 has Parakaiori there, with our other major vertical delivery with Hornby and Performing Arts. So, but we'll separate it out at the beginning of the report as well into the new year.
Yeah, because on page 46, I mean, it's reported as Parakori and Te Kaha.
Yeah, that's right. We'll correct that
yeah.
going into the new year for you.
Okay, thank
absolutely.
you.
Great, thank you. Mark.
Thank you. This might be one for Lynette, I suspect. I'm just wanting to try and get a bit of an understanding of where the Kiwi Rail relationship is at. And it seems to be causing a lot of grief on a lot of projects. And is it something that is in train and is about to be fixed, or is it something that's going to take a heck of a long time?
In train, nice. Given we've been talking about it for a number of years, it's probably going to take a long time to work through, and we are working through it. I believe you've had an update on where we're at with a number of projects via memo, but I'll have to come back and do that separately.
Yep.
If it hasn't, and I'll check out where we are. We'll give you an update via memo.
Another action out of that, which Victoria had asked for, was around the whole sort of strategy with actually dealing with Kiwi Rail.
Yeah.
So it would be good to get an update on where that's at as well.
Yep, I can do that
Cool.
separately.
Is anything we as elected members can help
Yeah.
in getting that sorted? We're
Yeah, I
really
mean, it's
keen to
getting pretty
get that
expensive.
moving.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Mark. Yanni.
Thank you. Several questions. Just in regards to Te Kaha and Parakaori, do we know which one's going to be open first? Like,
That's
I
right,
guess
exactly. How
'cause,
much money do you want to put on it?
yeah, I mean, I kind of think probably Te Kaha will be open first. But in a more serious aspect, I mean, I was really lucky to go and hang out with the Special Olympics basketball team, and I know we've got the Special Olympics games coming in 2025. I'm increasingly concerned that Parakaori will not be ready in time to host the games. Do we have an update on when Parakaori will be actually open and able to be used? Given, like, in the report, it said we had a date, but subsequently they've the Australian
Yes.
company went.
So good point. I think maybe what we should do in this is formally request the chief executive of Otaka Road, the new name escapes me. Yeah, to come along, because we used to have John come along to finance performance or to a briefing and
Yeah.
explain it. So
I
good-
think the
good
problem
point.
when we get the briefing, we don't really get told when the opening's going to be or what the current
Yeah.
forecast is. We tend to get a lot of stuff. It's in negotiation with the contractor.
Yeah,
We don't
well,
get told.
let's get them in.
But-
Let's get them in.
Actually, we had been given 2 dates and they've both gone. So what's,
Yeah.
So, but could we, I mean, more at a kind of high level in terms of events that we've got coming and risk, do we have a sort of contingency plan if it's not ready, or do we know what events that we're likely to lose out on?
Yeah, I'm obviously looking around the room for Nigel or Mary,
Yeah.
but
I think it's something
I
we'll-
think
we'll-
Sam's suggestion
Yeah.
to that one.
So
is
we'll get
probably
the
way
chief
forward.
executive in, but I think also I've seen the Lynn nodding away. We'll take that other pointer as well. So
And Mr. Chairman, maybe that's part of the briefing or the heads up that we're going to have with this.
And I think the
that
other
should be
thing
part
we've
of
got
it.
all right, so
outstanding.
let's not.
Yeah,
let's
no,
not
I won't
dwell
dwell
on
on it. The other thing we've got outstanding for those of us who went on the visit was to get a sense of how much it's actually going to cost for people to use. So, because obviously,
So we'll
Yeah, so
we'll
that
get
could
them
be
in.
just
I
wrapped
think
in.
that's the best
Yeah.
best way. Okay,
on
what's
page
the next question?
75, and James will probably back me up on this, but the digital citizen experience identity platform service, overall red status, and this is kind of like how I guess people interact with our technology. And I see that we're supposed to get some of that complete by July 2023. Is that on track? Is that I'm just trying to understand that whole customer service interface that we've been asking for a very long time, and now it's been flagged as red, which is concerning. So, are we getting a briefing on that, or is there anything we can do to get an understanding of what's gone wrong?
Councillor, I can update you on a couple of things. First of all, I'm sitting on a memo which has been deferred because of the annual plan, so there should be an update coming within the next 48 hours as to where we're at with implementation for the Hybris customer notification piece. The digital customer experience program is much the light of our overall digital portfolio. So we're working with the new CIO to make sure that the plans going forward are fit for purpose and able to be delivered, and that they are very clear in terms of the investment that we need to make. So that will be reported to Council as part of the long-term plan joint development process.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
Have you got
just-
another question?
Yeah, I do. Just the sorry, just find the page. But basically, the MCR that goes along the tannery. I'm just trying to. Sorry, I can't find the page. But just concerned that it's been delayed, but we don't seem to be getting start work notices or notices
So
saying.
Yanni, which page are you on?
Why
Just
delayed?
so the team can know where they're looking.
I'll just, so it's just the cycleways, and it's on page 62. So this is the Heathcote Expressway, Tannery to Martindale's. Construction continues with sections behind the tannery and Kamina Terrace being open. Final completion expected in July. I think the original date was February. But regardless, like, I'm just wondering, like, what comms is going out letting people know what's happening, because it just seems like the orange sign on the road just gets
All right, so
scribbled out.
you've asked a question.
Yeah.
Is it?
I'll have to come back separately. Sorry.
Okay, so can you come back to Yanni?
I'll come
Is
back
anyone
to
else
Yanni
interested in
directly.
seeing that answer?
Well, it was raised in the briefing we had around the cycleways.
No,
remember?
Yanni, I'm asking a question. Not that's fine.
I've just got a question into OCE for an update on it that I sent in a week or two ago.
Okay, well, can you just
So
do you
I'll
want to
follow
just
back and
circulate
it'll
something
get
around
circulated
everyone?
by
Yeah.
ICA.
And it was raised at the briefing.
Yep, no, get that. Okay, Phil's got a question.
Yeah, I'll come back on that.
Just to sort of back up what you're talking about, Paracore, I went for a
Do you want to just? I just want questions at the moment. If you want to just maybe do that at the end.
no, just to clarify. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
To help.
because I think
Yanni's
Pauline's
question.
got a question. Great, Pauline.
Okay, thank you. The Section 70-day service delivery review for the curbside service enhancement, when is that due? Has it been completed and just been processed, or does anyone know, or can we find out? Oh, sorry, it's page 64. The
Sorry,
curbside- Curbside service enhancement, Section 17A review.
I can give you an update on that one separately as well. Sorry.
And can I just note that the Bexley closed landfill foreshore remediation project is complete, and that's really good news. Thank you. Remember that one?
Great. Okay, Phil had something to add, and then we're going to move this on. Phil, we're going to talk about Paracore. Oh, very briefly. Yeah.
I went for my own tour through Ars Paracore with the new CEO. He is very keen to come down and talk to us. I asked him the pointed questions and he answered all of them. I said, where's your problem areas? What's this? What's that? It's a lot more progress than what you think. They have had a problem in one corner, but that is certainly fixed and well fixed. The ground had settled, the building had not, which I had been told. There was a lot of Chinese whispers going around, but he's more than happy to come down and tell us what's going on. Probably a quarter of all the car parks are done. There's a lot more happening. It's a lot further ahead than what we're probably led to believe through the media. So he's very happy to come down and have a yarn to us and get us up to speed. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Yanni.
Oh, sorry, just one really quick question. On page 90, I see that the bus priority scheme design for Ferry Road is 70% of the budget spent. Is the designs complete, or how do we get visibility of the actual designs? I'm just mindful that our board had a presentation on all the surf projects, and there didn't seem to be capacity for bus priority through the intersection.
It's not working.
No.
Page 90.
Yeah. So it's the bus priority scheme design Ferry Road.
Oh, the craft one.
Yeah.
That is just scheme design. It is scoping work, is my understanding. But again, I'll come back. I'll add that to the list. Come back in the memo tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I'm happy to move this. Phil's happy to second it. Any discussion? Yanni.
Yeah, just I think, I appreciate the detail that staff have given us. I just wanted to commend staff for drawing attention to a number of the risks, particularly around cost escalation. And I just wanted to make the point that I've raised sort of over the last 3 years, is we know costs are blowing out all over the place, but I still don't get a sense of what projects we're actually not going to do because of the increased cost. And I'm just, it seems like we just keep getting, the costs have gone up, so we still do what we're committed to, even though the costs are going through the roof. And I do wonder at what point we actually look and say, that's the budget for the project. You need to revise the scope and design it down to meet the budget, which is kind of what we did with Linwood Pool, right? Which is kind of a sensible approach. So I just wondered, like, I wonder how my colleagues feel. I mean, the information report is really good, but you can see that we've got a massive financial challenge on most of the projects in here. And I just wonder, keep wondering when we're actually going to deal with, not just finding additional money repeatedly to increase project budgets, but actually look at revising the scope so that we can stay within budget. The other thing is, I just wanted to acknowledge the reporting around the craft and the surf. It is really good finally to get some visibility of what's happening. And I think the key thing now is ensuring that the community understand the interrelationship between all of those projects. But I just wanted to acknowledge that we've got a good dashboard now to understand and track how those projects are progressing, which I appreciate.
Great. Thanks, Yanni. Did you want to say something, Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, briefly raise my concern, and you've heard it before, about the Kiwi Rail relationship that's interfering with so many of our transport projects, and really would love to see us as a council find a way to once and for all fix this, whether we need to have Phil go and knock on some doors in Wellington and chief executives and ministers and high-level people have a chat to try and iron out what's going on and how we can fix it, so that we can stop having these delays and cost blowouts on so many of our projects, let alone the fact that when we have in Hornby a traffic pole that was knocked out in Easter last year, so it's over a year ago, and we've had it under temporary management for all of that time, and every day just about every Hornbyite goes past that intersection and that set of cones, and we'd really love to have them, fixed and repaired. But we're being told continually that it's Kiwi Rail. So I really would love to see us find a way to work through this as a council and get Kiwi Rail sorted out.
Put the motion. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you both very much. Okay, next up, item 10, the hearings panel. So do the team want to come forward and... Yeah, just 2 seconds. So, yep, no, we mentioned. So let's stop. Yeah. So let's just everyone take a deep breath. What we're going to have is Melanie will introduce it. She's indicated she's going to move, and Mark will second. The mayor's indicated he's got an amendment to Litchfield Street, which we will put before we vote on the whole thing.
I
So
don't know if it's a foreshadowed, is it?
no, it's an amendment.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Melanie will introduce it. Then we will take questions from staff if they are necessary. Then we will put the amendment. Then we will vote on the whole thing, and we will have one debate. I don't want to relitigate this. Right. So Melanie, over to you.
Thank you, and thanks for doing this today, so we don't drag this out till August. That's really good. So, a lot of this is obviously already in the report. This has been quite a long process. You can see on page 119, like the consultation process. This started back in over a year ago, back last April, and lots of key stakeholders were talked to by staff before they were really looking at how they were going to work around the options around Te Kaha streets. And it became quite clear during that Litchfield Street to the west was sort of the key contentious part of this whole plan. So they had put in a heap of work before this even got towards the hearings panel. We, as a panel, we met 6 times. It was very long. We met over for 6 weeks, and it was very thorough. We listened to a range of submitters that came to talk to us, and I just wanted to thank all the people that did turn up to talk to us in person. We really appreciated that. As a panel, we worked really hard, and we asked a huge number of questions, which you'll be able to see attached to the report. And I just wanted to thank the panel members, Tyrone, Sarah, Mike and Yanni doing the table there, for all the work that we put in. I also wanted just to thank the staff as well who put so much effort in. They answered all our questions, and then they went to work on another option and looked at the safety assessment and all the other stuff that you guys did, so thank you. Option 3 came about as a result of that submission process. There was a range of views on Litchfield Street. The rest of it was relatively uncontentious, and we tried to put the best of both worlds together, really. I personally found that actually quite a challenge because a lot of submitters, it was very clear for west of Litchfield that people were quite happy with option 1, including majority of businesses that were along that stretch. And as a result, compared to option 2, we added in mobility spaces. People talked about accessibility for people. We added in a P10 parking space because people from the businesses wanted a space for short-term parking on the street. So we responded to those. There's a table on page 118, you'll see, that has a comparison of all the 3 options. we also, as a panel, actually had a much further detailed. My thing's going to try and restart. A much more detailed table as well. We actually got staff to go and work out areas of garden space and footpath versus where tables and chairs can be for outdoor dining and things like that. So we really wanted to get full information so we could make a really informed decision. So the end result was that the hearings panel recommendation, which was far from predetermined, was what you can see that's on page 110. I actually was worried we wouldn't get to an outcome during the deliberations on the day. We had a couple of us had the same order of preference for those three options. The rest of them all had different. So it was actually incredibly challenging to come to this decision today, and well, that you can see before you today. What we did come up with in the end was that it was really straightforward for all the other streets we looked at: Madras, Barbados, Chilman, Litchfield Street East, and then for the west we put forward option 3 as our preferred, with the backup of option 1. And just remember that Litchfield Street will be undergoing street works due to the renewal of Three Waters infrastructure there, so it makes sense to be doing some work along the street when it gets resealed. So we've got option 1 as the backup, as it still provides that pedestrian-friendly streetscape. It was preferred during consultation, but it also, we acknowledge, it comes at a lower cost than option 3. So if council decides it's not keen to spend the extra around $1 million on that, then option 1 is a backup that they can choose. So yeah, that's my introduction. Yeah, like I said, I'm happy to move.
Yeah, thank you, Mel. That's really, really useful and presents a good report of the work the hearings panel have done. Now, I'm thinking we probably best to do questions of the team first, if people have got questions, noting the report's quite comprehensive. Mark. Yeah, Mark Peters. Yep. Does anyone have any questions for the staff? Aaron? Yep. And then Phil? Yep.
Yeah, just a couple on the design, because I couldn't tell from the images and that on each of the intersections around the stadium. We're putting in pavers, cobblestones. That's those ones, eh?
In terms of tactile pavers, or are you talking about?
No, on the entire intersection, they're kind of all blocked out.
So they're not raised intersections; they're just defined intersections.
That was the question. So none of them. It just says to your brain, this is different.
Yeah.
It's an intersection.
Yeah.
Expect other stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. That was that one for now. Yes. Oh. Yes. So my follow up to that is, can that change? Do staff have delegation to just switch them to raised platforms?
We actually don't have the ability to make them raised platforms. We had considered that as an option, but we've had to rule it out. The drainage in that area doesn't suit, stormwater doesn't suit the possibility of a raised platform in the area.
So that was looked at very early on in the design, and is principally, as Jenny says, around the drainage issues with those frontage properties, especially along Madras Street. It's very flat there, and in terms of achieving that level access to Takaha and the floor levels for that, it was quite complex in order to deliver any raised tables there without creating flooding and drainage challenges for stormwater.
Okay, that's that one. Thank you.
Phil?
Yeah, this is just Litchfield Street I want to talk about. I know option 3 is $1.2 million dearer. How much is option 1 to start with that I can add the 1.2 onto? Roughly, don't have to tell me. I know it'll be in the table, but I'm just talking for the people out in TV land.
So just say roughly 3.6 million, and then for option 3 it goes up. Oh, sorry, I got that wrong. 4.07 million, and it goes up to 4.4 million in the option 3. So option 1, 4.07, and option 3, 4.4.
That's not right.
Roughly speaking.
1.2 million difference.
1.2.
That's not right.
I did give you the wrong. 3.6 to 4.4.
Okay, no, that's fine. Now, because what I've got to.
So sorry, Phil.
Yes.
Just in my stupid question mind, and I'll come back to you. Can we just be very, very clear on, because I got that as an $800,000 increase, not a 1.3. So can we just be very, very clear on option 1's price and option 3's price.
So based on October 2022,
Yep.
Litchfield Street came in at 4 mil. Oh, so this is our estimates.
We talk about option 1 and option 3.
Option 1 and option 3.
Yeah. Okay, have a think.
There's a
and
table, sorry to butt in, but there's a table on page 124, 8.3 that says Litchfield, I understood was 5.2 million.
5.2.
That's what this table says.
If you need a couple of minutes, that's fine. It would just be good to really clarify what that increase in cost is. And it's okay if you do.
I just need a calculator.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's take 5 minutes while
Okay.
they... Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, don't rush. Right, turn it off.
Change the numbers now.
Like, Phil can keep going with his questions if you've got any more questions.
Yeah, I've got some more questions.
Can one of the team just go and rally up whoever's missing, which I think is just Mark and Kelly and Aaron?
Far be it from...
No, these guys are. Tara, we've got staff, we can do that.
Yeah, you don't.
We don't have to send the councillors out to find people.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Here they are.
Our apologies for that.
That's okay. It's better to get it
so,
right now.
So the answer actually is within the council papers today, and was one of the issues that the hearings panel debated, obviously around the cost of these. It was item question 68, which you have in your papers today. So option 1, this is Litchfield Street West, that's between Manchester Street and Madras Street. Option 1 cost was 3.3 million, give or take, 3.26 million, and option 3 is 4.488 million. So basically that is the increase of 1.2 million between options 1 and option 3.
Great, thank you. That's really useful.
So my question is, because I've got the breakdown on how you achieve the 1.2, and I would have thought that option 1 would have had a footpath, would have had drainage upgrade, would have had streetscape landscaping in it. And the one thing I can't understand between option 1 and option 3 is why we're ripping out a quarter of the asphalt and turning it into concrete, which is another 225,000. It's a lot of. It seems a lot of cost for not a lot of win. You know what I mean?
My microphone didn't turn on. Option 3, the difference being that it's a two-way slow speed zone, so 10 kilometres an hour, two-way. What the safe system assessment told us was in order to achieve a safe outcome with that 10 and try and achieve that slow speed environment, we needed to make it look like it wasn't just a two-way normal street, because people drive the standard 30 or 50 kilometres an hour through there. So we have to achieve by means of kind of changing the surface texture a slow speed environment. So if you think about outside Cambridge Terrace or Oxford Terrace, you know, there's paved areas where you generally go slower because you think, oh, it's not a tar sealed road, it must be a slow speed environment. So we try and have to put that into place to make it a safer place for people to maintain that two-way flow.
Okay, all right, okay. Oh well. Sarah? Yep.
Thanks. Just to make it clear for people, so Litchfield Street is due to be the main thoroughfare to Kaha, is that right? And if we don't do anything to Litchfield Street, what are the likely additional costs that people organising the concerts, so venues Otatahi and concert promoters, will have to bear every time there's anything even mid-size or large happening there?
So we can't specifically talk to the detailed costs around that because they're not known yet. But it is the core pedestrian connection between the bus interchange and Te Kaha. And so we know that everybody arriving at Te Kaha will be a pedestrian within 200 metres of the stadium. There's no parking on site at Te Kaha, so everybody will have to arrive there by either private motor vehicle to a parking building or by PT. So a large volume of people will be utilising Litchfield Street on that particular block because the bus interchange is located there. There's 2 parking buildings located there, and it is a key route out of the central city. So, yes, so the reality is the costs associated with managing that high volume of people going down that street will be increased if we do not have a wide enough place for them to congregate and a safe means for them to travel between those facilities and Te Kaha.
Do you remember what the original stuff from Venues Otatahi was? It was about 400,000, wasn't it, a year?
Yeah, that was an estimate that they gave us based on kind of the figures they had with Orange Theory and operating their other venues. And then to locate this in Central City, obviously we've had to kind of make a bit of a guesswork on projecting those numbers. So we don't know the true figures until it comes out, but we're estimating that.
So in many ways, the Event Traffic Management Plan report, which has been independently prepared for Te Kaha, which we shared with the hearings panel, I believe you have in your papers today, it's really all about the number of events and the scale of events at Te Kaha that really warrant streets being closed and traffic diversions in order to deliver a safe and good arrival and departure experience for patrons. And so it's almost not just about the costs within Litchfield Street, but the number of times that you need to close the street in order to deliver a safe environment. So the recommended scheme before you today from the hearings panel recommends a low-speed shared space zone that actually reduces the number of times that significant of the smaller to design scale events, so that's a Super Rugby game, the sort of events that are happening once a month, give or take. So it reduces the need for Litchfield Street to be closed on those occasions because every day.
Okay, I'm just keen to
it's a
keep
safe environment.
really good points. Melanie's got a question.
And the last one is
Yes.
While the focus is often on Te Kaha and games and those kind of things, this is actually Litchfield Street's in the middle of, or adjacent to the East Frame. And so it's ending up being do we have any idea of how many people are going to be living actually, this is their neighbourhood sort of space within a couple of hundred
the
metres of
projection
it?
is, I think, about 900 dwellings within the East Frame. And so, yeah, we've met with one of the developers who's looking at one of those super lots there. They're very obviously very interested in how Litchfield Street will be. They see advantages in that being a really pleasant pedestrian environment space there in terms of marketing those residential properties. They believe it's a good fit.
Thank you.
Melanie.
The other thing that came up with the safety assessment as well was quite interesting about option 2 in the current streetscape on Litchfield Street. I was just wondering if you could talk to that because it hasn't really been brought up.
Really, almost as part of exploring that alternative option, we went out and we sought a further independent safety assessment. And when the independent team went out there and looked at it, they identified in that report a number of existing problems there. You've got fast food takeaways, you've got degrees of double parking going on. It's not a great environment for people to walk through there. It's not a great environment for those premises that are operating along there. And so the scheme put forward before you today actually attempts to deal with a number of those issues they identified. That's why this option 3 includes more servicing and loading, speciality servicing and loading zones. It also includes 2 specific mobility parking bays there. And that's pretty much in line with council's approach to managing on-street parking in the central city. Effectively, as we discussed with the panel at the time, the sort of arrangement you might get to there is something similar to Riverside Market, further west on Litchfield Street, where there are a couple of parking bays there that Uber drivers and so on can use, pick up food, move away, and it actually manages really well. And I think Riverside are happy with how that works. And so a similar approach there.
So Aaron, and then Andre, and then I'm keen to have a question for
so
Phil and then move it along. Yeah.
I'm still struggling on the number of people we're projecting that will use Litchfield Street. How did we come up with that when there's an incredible, beautiful boulevard on Cashel, and if anyone's staying in a hotel, they're not going to go past Cashel to get to Litchfield, they'll just come straight up Cashel. And people that have come to, and the reason for putting Te Kaha in town was that there'd be the flow on to all the other businesses. So the expectation, I thought, was that people were coming in to use restaurants and stuff or shopping and do the inner city thing prior to an event and after, in which case they would also be mainly on Cashel. So where did our modelling come from?
So most of the modelling assumes that, as you rightly say, that Cashel Street and Litchfield Street will carry that load of pedestrian activity. The vast majority, about 70%, is expected to come to and from the west, to Te Kaha, across Madras Street, and that sort of makes sense. The reason around Litchfield Street is that it's the key link between the bus interchange and Te Kaha. And so a lot of the projections around expected flow for Te Kaha are around enhancing and increasing over the years the number of people that will arrive there by bus, but also west on Litchfield Street, which was the purpose of a couple of submissions,
what work have we
is 3
done?
critical parking buildings.
What work have we done to work out how many will want to use the bus to go to events? And have we, and I know that VO have numbers on how people go to their events, have we put our modelling up against how people currently use VO venues and events?
Yes, we've talked with VO about the existing event arrangements, and of course this is a very different location. It's in the heart of the central city, and so one of the reasons Te Kaha is where it is in the recovery plan is because it's 400 metres from the bus interchange. So the real advantage of this is that you get direct access between the bus interchange and Te Kaha. But coming back to your question on Litchfield Street, there are 3 major parking buildings there as well. So those are the most attractive, convenient buildings for anyone arriving at Te Kaha to use.
So then my next question is on that, which is good, is with those parking buildings, have we modelled when an event is on and the bus exchange is apparently busy, all the car park buildings are full, how those vehicles get in and out? Because there's quite a bit of feedback currently on some particular streets in the inner city that they just don't move.
Yes, we the original transport assessment, which I think was shared with council about 18 months, 2 years ago, it had arrival and departure profiles for Te Kaha. The arrival profile, as we would expect, is smoother.
Yep.
That we expect people to arrive early, spend time in town, have a meal, have a drink, then go to a concert or the game. The departure profile is the critical one, and that is that most people expect to leave Te Kaha, get back to their mode of transport, however they're getting out of town, or to their hotel within about 15 minutes. So it really is very peaky after.
So, and that's where the problem arises, is you've got all of them going out. I believe there's a recent event in town, I don't recall which one it was, where the exit time from one parking building to go one block was over 30 minutes, it was between 30 and 40 minutes. And that's not with a full stadium, that was just an event in town.
But the issue is, of course, that events on a weekday evening are taking place way after the evening peak. So the traffic levels, general traffic levels on the network are at a minimum.
Right.
Because you're at 10, 11 o'clock at night. So there's very little traffic on the network. So exiting people from those buildings, there's nothing in these proposals that actually limits the ability of people to leave those parking buildings. The capacity of them will be the exit capacity of the building itself rather than the capacity of the network to handle the traffic.
Okay, and then the other one is, on an event day, but the bigger ones, the smaller ones don't matter so much, but on the big ones, is Madras and Barbados open or closed?
Madras would be closed
Completely.
On exit from events at Te Kaha, but again, that's where we come back to the benefit of the event management plans, is that they're designed to reduce those effects around the design event of 15, 20,000 patrons, and smaller events, that it reduces the number of times that sort of plan needs to be activated.
Right, so Barbados...
Okay, maybe last question, Aaron, and then I've just got a couple of others that have them as well.
Okay, so in our bus planning, if there's an express bus from Rangiora, Kaipoi, wherever, and they're all full, are they all expected to go straight to the bus interchange and then all those people walk the 3 or 4 blocks, or do we bring them straight in Barbados and there's a drop zone right next to the stadium? So we're making it convenient for the customer.
Yeah.
Are we doing that?
So the arena is 400 metres from the bus interchange.
Mm-hmm.
So that's within the normal distance
At the limit,
of
yep.
walking distance to any bus stop anywhere in the city.
Okay, that's been asked and answered. Andre.
So answers no.
Andre?
Also, so a slight follow-up question on that. I remember we were looking at a plan a number of months ago with coach parking. That's still the case?
Yes, that's still the case.
So that's what you meant by street buses.
That's what I was told no.
So
That was public transport. That coach parking is private hire.
No, sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you meant metro services.
No, that's good.
yeah. So
Yeah.
specific express buses.
Yeah, so still buses. I may have missed it, but I did have a look for it. In option 1 along Litchfield Street, will there be places for pickups, drop-offs, taxis, Ubers?
So that's kind of limited to one area outside kind of the kind of eateries, takeaways that are currently located there. And that's it for option 1 in terms of there's a loading zone located just off Manchester Street as well.
Yeah.
And so there would be on Litchfield Street,
Yeah.
but a very small.
Very like 2 opportunities to do pick up and loading.
Okay. Cool. And the speed limit of 10 k's, is that just for vehicles?
Well, it's all users of the road.
Or use the road? So you couldn't do a light jog through Litchfield Street?
You'd probably be the safest way to do a 10 kilometre through there,
Yeah.
but you're not going to cause too much other harm. But I don't think we
No.
should get.
But if you were running beyond 10 k's, would that quite literally be illegal?
Councillor, speed limits apply to vehicles.
So it only applies to vehicles?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Lime scooters?
Its operation would be exactly the same as sections of Oxford Terrace and the laneways in the
Understood, yeah.
frames, and the traffic resolution would be around it being, which is before you today, around it being a shared zone street. And so, yes, it is enforceable.
Yeah.
But as we've briefed the panel previously, that's the benefit of the design, is the design lends itself to 10K feeling about right for people moving through there in a safe environment. If we have to enforce it, then the design has failed.
Yeah, and same for lime scooters, capped at 10Ks. Yeah, cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we got one question from Phil.
That's quick.
And a quick question, then we're going to move on.
How wide are the lanes on the two-way bit of Litchfield Street, the option 3? How wide are they? Please. Because if they're extremely narrow, no one will use it anyway. So we're designing something that
There'll be it'll be slightly wider for the tram, because the tram dictates the width, the available safe width needed. The remainder of the lanes will be designed as they have been in any of the central city streets post earthquakes, and that is they're broadly around 3.2 to 3.25 metres, and your standard maximum vehicle width is about 3/4 of a metre less than that.
Okay, no, thank you. That's good.
Okay, so I think we're there with questions, but that's been really useful actually, and really good questions around the table. So we do have an amendment. So we've got a mover and a seconder for the hearings panel resolutions, and we do have, which is option 3, and we do have an amendment from the mayor around the specific part of Litchfield Street. So do people want to debate? I'm going to regret asking this. Do people want to debate both of them, or do we want to just vote on the amendment and then wrap it into one debate at the end? Do you want to? Is it on the screen? Or?
Can you put the amendment up?
Yeah, we can show it, but it's several pages long.
No, the amendment is not several pages long.
Yes, it is, because it will need to include...
So the amendment is effective. Would you want to just very briefly?
It's not going to fly, but I'll do this for clarity, right? I want to move that we separate Litchfield Street from today's decision. I understand the committee secretary has the wording to do this from staff. Okay. This has been discussed, and I want to make it a clear decision either way and move forward. Do we keep this project in, I'm talking the Litchfield Street bit, or not? I've been advised, as all councillors have, that Waka Kotahi subsidy is not confirmed for the Te Kaha package yet. If Litchfield Street scope is removed or remains unconfirmed, it may impact the funding decision on the package due to the reduction of the benefits provided. Waka Kotahi have indicated they will not consider their decision on funding until we approve the works, all of it or some of it missing. We have heard from businesses and property owners in that area that they don't want this street done yet. So I want to make it a clear decision today on whether we do it or not. And if we do, we do. But at least we have made this decision formally.
Okay, so effectively what it is, and I'm just struggling to see which, you've got a map on the screen, which probably isn't helpful.
You can do that.
We'll just put it to a vote.
Can I just check though, because can we just have proper legal advice? Sorry, Helen, because if you are saying something, so the hearings panel recommendation is to do it, the amendment can't be to not do it. That would have to be a foreshadowed motion. An amendment could be to change how it's done,
Yeah, so
but
you
not
will
to
have
not do it.
You will have seen the email that came around on Monday from the Office of the Chief Executive outlining the resolutions. Yeah, which outlined it. So, I mean, Lynette, do you want to just speak, just to clarify it so that everyone's aware of
So
that?
just to clarify, the advice that went around said there's no reason that decision relating to Litchfield Street can not be split off, considered separately from other Te Kaha streets. In considering the option to separate the decision, in considering the option to separate, the decision making should take into account the following: that it does provide a key pedestrian link. So there's a number of things it takes into account. Three Waters need to renew water and wastewater infrastructure down there. While the road condition is good, it will have to be replaced at some point.
No, sorry, I have read the email. It's just
Okay.
that email doesn't deal to the process at council of whether it's foreshadowed. It just says that we could make that decision, but I think that it legally has to be a foreshadowed motion
Or
because it is
let's
contrary.
ask the lawyers. So,
That's what I just asked. Yeah.
so we'll just wait for.
Questions of
Can we just wait? I'd just like to get the advice that Sarah wants first.
Through the chair, can we just be really clear? Are we we're just talking about Litchfield West?
Yeah.
Yeah. We call it Litchfield Street West, and anything we do then that might make it a little bit clearer as well.
So we'll just. So Helen.
yes, just give us a moment.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Steve.
No, I just want to be clear one way or another going forward, so everyone knows one way. If we're in, we're in. So it's a.
I mean, people could vote against a specific resolution that's in the various panel recommendation if they don't want this to be done.
Let's have an early morning tea and come back at 11. I
Okay.
think that's going to be best. Yeah.
Good go. Thank you.
change. We're just going to change the structure a wee bit. The team just need a wee bit more time to work through some amendments, or an amendment. So what we'll do first is the LGFA funding agency. I'll take the report as read. I imagine everyone's had a chance to go through it. Is there anything anyone would like to add? Any questions? I'm happy to move it and noting the change, and Tim's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Linda. Do you want to do the next one, Central Plains Water, noting that Pauline and Mark are conflicted? Again, I'm happy to take it as read. Well, we will take it as read. Is there any questions that anyone's got, noting that they'll be coming in at some, is it July, August, to front with us?
The question seems to be about the water monitoring, and I know you, and I'll clarify my question. Is there a concern about the monitoring of the water quality, or is it just the process, or what's the? I just can't understand what the concern was. That's all, or is it just?
There have been, shall we say, decades of questions about the quality of the water. When this council put representatives onto the joint committee, there was an explicit request that we work with the joint committee and with the trust to ensure that we have adequate transparency and clarity as to the water quality and reporting against it. So as you can see from the report, this has been raised at the first meeting of the joint committee, and we felt collectively that it would be best for the sustainability report to actually be presented to this council and also potentially to the Selwyn Council, so that councillors have adequate opportunity to understand and to be provided with advice on what the monitoring and reporting regime is about. So that's the proposed way forward, so you can actually get a level of comfort and transparency.
So just to clarify, we're going to get a water testing regime in front of us, so we know when it's happening.
Yep, the sustainability report will cover that plus other things.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great. So we've got the Yanni.
Question: who holds the liability for the resource consent?
The resource consents are owned by the trust itself, so the trust is accountable to ECAN for performance. Right. The trust issues back-to-back water rights to the company, and the relationship, the accountability relationship for that is between them.
Right. So we're not likely to end up into like another sort of organics plant scenario where we've got a private company effectively, operating something that may not be compliant, and then we pick up the liability.
So you don't have to answer that now, given the complexity of that question, but it may be useful to take it away and come back. Yeah, be useful. Great. I mean, I don't expect Linda to have those answers today. Yeah.
No, that's cool. I guess I'm just concerned about receiving this when the monitoring seems pretty fundamental, and it's been going for such a long time.
Okay, so the mayor's happy to move it, and Melanie, because they're going to agree on everything today, is going to second it. Does anyone have any debate? Sarah?
Just briefly. Really pleased to see that we are taking more proactive steps in this space finally, and looking forward to seeing what difference it makes, if any. Because the wording is joint, we're clearly not going to be able to change it. It's not quite as strong as I would have liked. Look at ways of whether we're able to provide information rather than just actually providing the information. I'm still uncomfortable with our membership here, but the fact that we are being proactive and taking some serious looks now at the environmental impacts is heartening, and so I'm happy to keep seeing how that goes, but looking forward to actually getting to a crunch time, and if we get results, we get results. If we don't, we need to leave, because we cannot be effectively overseeing such huge environmental degradation. Thanks.
All in favour say aye. Aye. Against? So, do you want that recorded, Yanni? Around one? Yep. Yep. So we'll just note that for Yanni. Great, that's carried. Thank you both. So 1 and 5. Okay, so just note that for Yanni. The motion carries. Great, we'll invite up Venues Otatahi. Come back up to the table.
All right, morning everyone. Nice to see you all. All right, we'll crack into it. Delighted actually to be presenting our Q3 report, albeit it feels like a lifetime ago now that we're already in nearly in July. But look, overall we've had a strong performance, and I guess it's important to note when we set our budget, we'd just come out of COVID, so we'll come out of COVID. I'm sure we're still under some sort of hangover, but it was really April that we were able to start trading again. So that's about the time that we were setting our forecasts and our budget. So you'll see that a lot of our results are actually quite significantly beyond where we thought they would be. Now that's a really, really positive outcome, and we're really, really pleased with that. But noting that next year we've built a little bit of that conservatism again into our budget, just noting that obviously it's a fairly volatile economic environment that we're heading into. But to crack into it, look, just starting off with some highlights for the quarter around event attraction. So you'll see there that we have delivered to the end of March 330 events. Now that's versus a budget of 244. If we look to the year end, we're forecasting 420, which is a 38% uplift, which is a great result. Really showing the appetite for members of our community to get back out and enjoy events and enjoy that connection between each other that was taken away from us for so long. 26.3 million in estimated economic benefit of events across the venues, and forecasting by the end of the year that being over 32 million. So again, a great result. And that's not taking into consideration the benefits of local procurement as well. From an event attraction perspective, actually, is Gil online? Is he? Oh, he said he was in the waiting room. Sorry. Apologies, Gil.
No one in the waiting room at the moment.
Okay.
Leah will follow it up though.
Okay,
so,
awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. In terms of guests, so look, you'll see there by the end of March, over 500,000 guests through the venues, which is fantastic. Our SOI target by year end was 400,000. Based on our forecast now, we're looking at around 700,000 guests. So that's a 70% uplift, which is again really, really awesome to see. Great to see the venues full, and a real desire to enjoy those community assets. And some of the highlights of major events. So for the full year, we had actually our target was to deliver 8 major events, and we're on track to deliver 27. So again, those major events are those that really turn the dial from an economic impact perspective. So you'll see some of the highlights there, a really diverse range of events as well across the venues. We've got Cirque du Soleil that's just finished, and we had one other in this quarter. So again, by the end of the year, that full 27, 238% uplift, which is pretty awesome. We like to continue to celebrate supporting local. So again, 78% of all our food and beverages purchased, food from the Canterbury region, and 5% from the rest of the South Island, and only 2% imported. And again, those items that are imported are generally those that we just can't grow here or get here. So it's a really small number of items, as well as us designing our menus to not need those food items that are not able to be sourced here in Canterbury. And what that translates to from a direct contribution to local suppliers, so year to date to 31 March is just over 1.5 million. Our target for the end of the year was 1.7, and we're on track to to deliver close to 2 million again, and that's a 17% uplift. So wonderful story to tell, and we're seeing real benefit of those that choice and that change. Obviously our next focus, and not that we don't do it already, is to extend our local procurement philosophies to all of our supply chain, and that really inherently happens anyway, but it'll be something we'll start reporting and tracking on as well. Community access to and connection with the venues is obviously a fundamental part of what we do, and having the privilege to look after the community assets on the city's behalf. So year to date to 31 March, we've delivered 45 events that have attracted that community discount. Our year-end target was actually 40, so we're forecasting around 60 by the end of the year, and that's a value of around 126,000 to March. So again, tracking well ahead and continuing to try and grow that opportunity as well. And from a financial performance perspective, just to reiterate, and I know we do often, but this will be our first full year of trading since before the town hall opened, just because of the constraints of the last few years. So really just starting to set new baselines. The business is different, given the portfolio of venues we have and the operating model that is different than it has been in the past. So you'll see there a 4.2 million positive revenue variance to 31 March. And again, those event numbers being well beyond where we were budgeting. That's a 1.5 million positive EBITDA variance to budget. What we're doing at the minute is obviously also managing those Te Kaha pre-opening costs within our operating expenditure, and obviously noting there's no revenue associated with that venue as yet, so we'll continue to do that for the next year or so. So as you can see, there's a really strong start from a financial performance as well to the year. And what that's doing for us is really setting a solid foundation for what is a slightly bumpier road ahead. We're seeing significantly increased insurance costs, around that 50 to 70% is some of the information that we're receiving for our renewals. We're seeing uplifts around wages. You'll see a 10% obviously increase in the living wage, utilities, food costs. So look, this is what it's doing, is setting a really solid foundation. But what we do obviously with any surplus is that really is the opportunity to offset what is not covered by council support for the repairs and maintenance of the venues. For the next financial year, the operating support from council covers about 54% of those costs. So our ability to have a surplus and deliver over and above what we need to allows us that opportunity to offset. But we are forecasting for the next 3 years a deficit result. But that comes back online, particularly as we start to recoup some of those Te Kaha pre-opening costs. Yeah. Sustainability. So we're making really good traction on our sustainability goals. We're taking a holistic view to sustainability, so looking at not only environmental sustainability but social and business sustainability. And in the quarter, we've now established our baseline carbon footprint, which is what we needed to do to establish our sustainability strategy and roadmap through to 2030, where we've got that target of carbon neutrality. In terms of health, safety and wellbeing, we've undertaken our independent review of our whole health and safety system, and we've progressed all of the recommendations that were provided to us in that report. And really our focus is on continuous improvement, as well as focusing on those critical risks and the management and control and monitoring of those risks. And obviously Te Kaha, so we continue our intensive involvement in now detailed design. But also more so from a venue perspective, starting to execute the commercial strategy. So some of the aspects of that commercial strategy have been completed, but now we're into the activation of that strategy. So, for example, things like corporate hospitality, membership, naming rights, other sponsorship opportunities, all of those things will start to translate latter stages of this year, as well as starting the event attraction strategy. So business events, for example, will start to book this far out. So we are already talking about pencil bookings for Te Kaha. And then more entertainment and sporting events are slightly closer as those tours are locked away. And that is the end of our presentation. So thank you, and I'll see any questions.
That's great. Thank you very much. It's always good to see that, and a good financial result too, which is fantastic. And particularly also the increase in the events as well. I mean, that's surely a symbol, I would have thought, of what's going to come when we get to Kaha online. Is that sort of fair to say?
Oh, I mean, that's an increase in events based on our current infrastructure, you know, and so, I mean, Te Kaha already, you know, the desire and the events that will attract and the diversity of those events will be an absolute game changer. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Jake had a question. And then
just moving back to that slide about food and beverage, which, you know, we're really...
Oh, sorry, I should just say also Gil is online.
Oh,
so
okay.
he can hear us and everything as well.
I
can hear and see, yeah.
Cool.
Odd question, I don't even know why it popped into my head. The international segment, the food, is that food and beverage?
That's just food.
Oh, it's just food,
Yeah.
right. And I
Yeah.
just thought with beverage, like if you're selling Coca-Cola, there's no way it could be just something.
Not
so
getting
inconsistent.
our
But then
Coca-Cola
I
from
did also
Becksford.
think that Aaron as well. So, and then I wanted to get into the definition of local, whether it's owned by a corporate structure or whether produced locally. So, yeah, thanks.
Oh, all good, thank you.
I've got two questions, Sam, if that's okay. Kia ora. Just on the oh God, I've lost my place. Just on the chart of cumulative attendance at the venues. Oh, here we go. That one exactly. So February is quite low. Like, how is that what you would expect? Is that a seasonal thing? And because it's it's summer, everyone's back from holiday.
Yeah,
What's
no,
the
we
driver
tend
there?
to it is like this quite often, and so you'll see October, November really busy, March really busy, and actually August was really busy as well. We had obviously All Blacks in August, so there are always peaks and troughs. So February is traditionally a little quieter.
So I guess sorry to interrupt. Like I guess my question is, if I had have framed it properly in the first place, is that for those things where we have troughs, is there how can we? Is there anything we can do to support improving what you do? I mean, what are the because obviously there are natural troughs.
Yeah, there will always be natural troughs. We think about when big artists tour, etc. That's when you get some of those big peaks, similar to the sporting events. So you've got the Super Rugby season, and so you'll see some of those numbers change as a result. But yes, I mean the shoulder seasons are always, and the shoulder months can always be a target. But sometimes there will always naturally be certain peaks and troughs in activity. Yeah.
Caroline, I think it's really important to note that in those early parts of the years, February, even April, we get those major sporting events, and depending on the timing of those as between months, they can make a big difference. Or whether we get, a one-day international for cricket or the various Super Rugby matches makes a huge difference as between months.
Yeah, and I think also January there is because we had Elton John, we had Jimmy Carr, we had the Black Clash. January is actually generally a bit quieter, so that again is slightly out of kilter than what we would normally have.
Because an ODI in February would probably be a non-Gills point would probably be would be great for February really. Anyway, sorry, but I'll move on. My other question was, I recently went to to see the musical Hamilton in Auckland. And I was thinking the whole time, we used to get musicals in Christchurch. What's the blocker for getting something like Hamilton? Because it's not a venue thing. We've got the venue.
It can be a venue thing. So, and for Hamilton, we couldn't have had Hamilton here because the rig wouldn't allow it at the arena.
Because why? Sorry,
the rig wasn't sufficient for what they needed for Hamilton.
Right. Oh, okay.
But it also comes down to population as well. So with musicals, obviously long running, and unless we're a New Zealand exclusive, which obviously brings people to town and would travel here, for some of those longer running shows, you do need the population as well.
Mine's all good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the information and the consolidated accounts, but as kind of a similar question I've asked previously, I was just trying to get a sense of across the individual venues, how are they performing? Are there venues that we have, and I know in the past we've had venues that have cost us a lot more to operate than the revenue that they bring in. So I was just trying to get a sense of across the individual venues, how each of them is performing.
Yeah, so we won't be reporting financially on each of the venues. I know we've talked about it a fair amount, but that's the benefit of having a portfolio approach. Yes, the town hall, for example, costs more to open up and run. It's a heritage building. It's big. It has a diverse range of uses. And then you've got something like the Headley Pavilion that we can open and close, and it's not being used all the time. So again, that's a cheaper venue to run. So essentially, we can report on numbers of events, numbers of guests, but we don't, not the financial performance of each of the venues.
Right, but in terms of Air Force Museum and Hagley Oval, I presume we've sort of contracted those venues rather than owning them. So
Yeah,
is there a kind of review kind of thing that we do? Or?
Yeah, we're always reviewing those arrangements. All of them are different. Obviously, the arrangements that we have with the pavilion versus the Air Force Museum, where we just host events, whereas we actually manage the repairs and maintenance at Headley Pavilion as well, whereas the Air Force Museum, we just deliver events there. So all of the models are different.
Right. And just given the
Okay,
big
have you got
costs-
many more, Yanni?
Yeah, just two more. Just kind of, I understand we have a sort of ticketing thing for the town hall for heritage. Given that we've got future challenges with the Christchurch Arena in terms of the asset upgrade and also the ongoing costs of the stadium, are we looking at any other sort of ticketing strategies to get increased revenue to cover the increased costs that we're facing in terms of those specific items? I mean, Hagley Oval as well, we've got challenges too in terms of maintenance and improvements.
Yeah, so obviously the town hall, there is the heritage levy. We're not considering building any levies in for future investment or future infrastructure. It's not something that would be palatable to promoters or to build in costs that aren't associated with even the venue that they're hosting in.
Even though like Spark Arena does it in Auckland.
Yanni, I'm quite keen. We just got a few other people waiting for questions. I mean, like we say every time, you can always take these offline with Carolyn as well. She's happy to meet whenever on really specific stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Andre.
Thank you. Just picking up on Councillor Field's question around February 2023, am I right in understanding that the Warriors pre-season game in February drew a higher crowd than the Crusaders opening game in the regular season in February, and that you'd no doubt be fizzing to get the Wars back next year?
Yeah, we're working closely with the Warriors. Yep, absolutely. We're really keen to see them back here. There was a real desire for the Canterbury community to see them here, and that was pre-season. It was awesome.
Knew it.
And they're very keen on Te Kaha as well.
Thank you very much. And just noting on Councillor Fields, who is fizzing for more musicals, I'd like to officially invite you to Happy Days at the Hallsville Community Hall, opening up next week.
Brilliant. Well, you guys can invite each other offline all you like. So on that note, Jake's happy to move it. Phil's happy to second it. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Now we've got City Holdings.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Gil. Cheers. We've got City Holdings here, so we're going to get them in now because they were scheduled for 11. So Mel and I are going to swap. We're going to do them, and then we'll come back and do the wrap up of.
Are you going to go to PX after to do their strategic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Spreadsheet.
Welcome to the table. I feel like we see you every month. Yes. No, Go ahead. Did you want to speak to your report?
Yeah, just firstly, an apology from Abby. So she had planned to be here, but was not able to move her timetable to accommodate the later start. So apologies from that front. And Tony's got some introductory comments to make on the report.
Right, okay. So I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the financial performance of the group for the 9 months to March. All subsidiaries continue to face ongoing pressures resulting from the macroeconomic environment and resourcing constraints. But despite these ongoing pressures, all subsidiaries have met or exceeded their budgets, and we expect this trend to play out for the full year. This has translated into a dividend to council of 34.2 million, which we paid this Friday, in line with our SOI target. In terms of performance for subsidiaries, in particular, the airport, City Care, Enable and LPC outperformed against their budgets. The airport's profit is 32% ahead of budget, noting the strong performance in freight and property, but also noting that they're sitting on 81% of pre-pandemic passenger numbers. City Care's result is ahead of budget and is largely driven by Spencer Henshaw, which was acquired after the 2023 SOI was set. Enable's tracking ahead of budget, mainly as a result of higher recurring revenue due to less customer churn than expected and strong cost control, particularly around personnel and indirect costs. LPC continues to benefit from the ongoing impact of recent contract negotiations, although container volumes are lower than budget due to loss of space due to construction of a new crane, along with labour shortages. But there's high confidence that volumes will increase once operations return to normal. That's what we have, a high-level presentation, so that concludes that. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yanni?
Thanks. Are you able just to give us an understanding of the trend around the reporting into the highest paid and the lowest paid? Sorry, it's one of the actions. I can try and find what page. So it's just on page 263, and it's towards the top. CCHL will encourage its subsidiaries to report on and work to show a narrowing of the gap between the highest and lowest remuneration in each company, and it says it's ongoing, actively monitored by all subs, and reporting has commenced from FY 2022. Are you able just to give us a high-level sense of what the reporting is showing?
So the trend analysis will be taken once we have another annual result. So they don't report to us quarterly on that. They report annually in their annual reports.
So at this stage, we wait for the financial year to finish, the annual reports to be produced, and then we get a sense of what the gap is.
Yeah, that's what we do at this point, yeah.
So when is that likely to happen? Is that 1st of August or September or?
Usually
July, or?
End of September. However, Orion will be publishing the annual report shortly because they've got a 31 March balance date.
So this is an area of focus for us. In fact, we had a session early this morning on this very. So you will notice that in the past, the reporting has just been by salary bands, and now that includes the average of the lowest 10% and average of the highest 10% salary earners, so that we've had 1 year's worth of data, which is why Tony was saying that it's hard, you can't extrapolate a trend from 1 year's worth of data.
Right, okay, but we'll start to see the trend. Yeah, okay.
Great, thank you. Tyrone?
Thanks, Mel. Excuse me. So just with regard to the Littleton Port Company, so I mean, how important is the contribution of cruise ships to the financial performance of the LPC, just in your estimation?
I can't give you an exact percentage, but I can come back to you on that.
I mean, the reality is it has been a significant contribution. So I think of they budgeted for 60 odd ships in the first year, and the number's been exceeded, and future growth is anticipated. So from that point of view, their reporting to us all notes that that the revenue from the cruise ships arriving has been an important contributor to the improved revenue performance and profitability.
Because my basic reading of the table here on page page 269 of our agenda, it says that like it has revenue under target but operating margin above target, and my simple brain says, oh, that's because we've got low overhead ships turning up in Littleton that just turn up, park, and people jump off and on, rather than require straddles and cranes and all that sort of stuff. Is that would that be an accurate reading of that, or is that just crazy stuff?
I think in relation to revenue, it's sorry, I've lost my train of thought. It's more about the volumes going down. As I talked to you before, the volumes are lower than budget, so I think it's more around that.
I think we can ask the team to come back specifically on the cruise thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, can I? So through you, Leah, or
Yep.
Okay, cool.
There has been a question.
Sorry, I wasn't
asked
trying
in
to.
terms of
I was just.
what the specific revenue line is for the cruise ships, and whether it's by ship and by passengers numbers.
Okay.
And whether there's any differentiation depending on the type of cruise vessel that comes to Littleton as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just keen to get some facts around that. But thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Cheers.
We'll get back to you.
Probably good timing after, because this was the first official, really, cruise season, so it might be quite good to see results after that this year.
Kelly?
Thanks, guys. This is kind of like a broad kind of question. As an entity, do you look to growing the portfolio of assets that we have in CCHL?
So CCHL has and continues to consider opportunities that are put in front of us, and we have a process in terms of taking those through to the board for approval, and there have been a number of opportunities explored in recent years, none of which have got to the point of being executed from a new investment perspective, certainly in terms of investments of scale. But what can I say? Part of that, a big part of that has been the fact that in order to execute those investments, there are other assumptions you have to rely on, and cost escalation and other things have impacted other projects, and those sorts of pressures do tend to impact our final decisions as well.
So, how much of a priority is it to CCHL to look for new opportunities? And I'm a bit interested in, over time, what are recent acquisitions? Maybe in the last 5 or 10 years. Sorry, as a new councillor, I don't know when all these things kind of came on board.
The history is well before my time as well. So, in terms of, again, are we open for business from that point of view? Then yes, we are. And if you look at our purpose statement, it is to have a positive impact on not just the commercial returns of the existing portfolio, but other opportunities that would benefit the growth of the city and region as well. So that shows up in our purpose and mission statements. From a prioritisation point of view, obviously you're looking at the capital demands of the existing portfolio first and foremost. And as we've talked about in other sessions, there are challenges and opportunities attached to that as we look forward, which helps inform our risk appetite to consider new investments. And right now, our strategic priority is to get through the strategic review work program that you've asked us to complete. And coming out the other side of that, we would be addressing the question of what other opportunities exist that we might not be considering in our current portfolio, which we might want to consider in the future.
Just one last question. After that process is completed, how much more of a priority is it going to be to look at other opportunities, do you think? I mean, will you be resourced enough to do that, do you think? Does it depend on the direction we take?
Yeah, sorry, two answers to that question. So firstly, is the opportunity to look at other investments will be determined by what your requirements are. So our business case is going to be responding to your long-term requirements for our portfolio in terms of what you want to see from it in respect of income, in terms of capital growth, and in terms of impact across the non-financial capital. So we will be reviewing the portfolio to look at the extent to which it delivers on those requirements once you've made those clear to us. In terms of the operational capacity of CCHL to proactively seek new investments, we run on the smell of an oily rag. So, in fact, I don't think we can smell the oily rag. The capacity is not there to proactively seek external investments at this particular point in time. The future operating model would need to consider that.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, because it seems to me that there are opportunities, out there all the time. And
yeah, so I would say one of the operational requirements that you asked of us at the end of last year was to strengthen our connections with other entities like Christchurch NZ as the Economic Development Agency, and Ngāi Tahu and other key stakeholders. So we are investing time in that. That is starting to create the relationships. I wouldn't say it's a pipeline, but the relationships which could give way to a pipeline. We just need to make sure that in being a filter for those opportunities, that they still deliver on the investment objectives we're expected to meet. We're not in the business of providing economic incentives, not our role at CCHL.
And can I just ask one final question? In terms of diversification of the assets, that we have, I've heard talk in the past that we're quite vulnerable as a city because a lot of our assets are here.
Yeah.
Could you comment on that?
Yeah, so the nature of the portfolio is diversified across the infrastructure sector. So if you look at, certainly across Australasia, there's no other city that has a portfolio that's this diversified. If Auckland and Tauranga and Napier are all largely single asset plays, with a bit of other investment that helps deliver some additional return to them. So from an infrastructure portfolio, this is probably the most diversified portfolio in New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
But the concentration risk is firmly Christchurch and Canterbury. And again, that comes back to the purpose and mission statement, which has been to support the growth of Christchurch and Canterbury.
Right.
And
Thanks,
that's
Paul.
one of the factors we'll consider in the strategic review.
Yeah, thank you.
Pauline?
Oh, yeah, thank you. And just going to page 275, on the Red Bus Ferry Road site.
Yep.
So is there nothing we can be doing in the meantime? I see that's been parked until the strategic review, but surely we should be following that statement of intent, that we're working together with you and council to determine options for that?
Yeah. So we have previously reported on this. So there has been a prior program of work which considered the possible future use of that site, and it looked at a range of opportunities, and that engagement has included engagement with Christchurch NZ. So we asked the urban development team at Christchurch NZ to do a revised master plan for us, looking at opportunities to intensify that land holding and including the potential for residential to form part of that. We've also been engaged with other parties, including ECAN and others that have expressed interest in using or accessing that land, as well as some social enterprises that have asked the same. So
you just mean you're parking a decision on that until after the strategic review?
Yeah, so until we get through the strategic review, and again, this will be responding to your requirements, and you tell us what you need in terms of the nature and quantum of the returns from CCHL's portfolio. We'll be able to make a final decision then.
Okay,
until that time,
that's clear. So
it
the
doesn't
work
make sense.
has been done on the options.
It has been done.
Right, thank you.
And we have engaged with Bruce and others in the property team on that.
Yeah, and just back to 269, just on the port, the carbon reduction, and just looking at the straddles unable to use the biodiesel, which isn't attractive anymore now, the subsidies come off anyway, but are they looking at hydrogen or any other?
They are certainly looking at other opportunities, because it's the thing that moves the dial for them. The technology and equipment and affordability piece circle has not been resolved yet.
So would they have to replace them with hydrogen friendly straddles?
Yes, so there will be, it is anticipated there will be a point in time when the alternative technologies are available, which they would they'd be looking to replace. But you know, these straddles do have a long life, so you'd have a stranded investment, if you like. So then the question becomes, what do you do with the existing straddles before you replace them? So it's not just a question of the existing, the affordability of the new technologies, but what you do with your existing stock as well.
Can't convert them?
I'm not a straddle expert from a conversion point of view, no.
Oh, that's quite sad, 'cause I think they're quite high emitters, aren't they? Do you know?
It's the thing that moves the dial for them. So they're obviously conscious of it. I mean, if there was a direction to do it, they could execute, but it would be a significant investment, and we would have quite a large sunk cost attached to the existing infrastructure.
Yeah. Oh, that's helpful. Thank you.
You can. There was a proposal put to LBC a number of years ago about converting the straddle cranes to 50-50 hydrogen, 50 not, and they didn't take it up because they were leaning on the biodiesel side of it. But anyway, that's that. But there is an opportunity to do it going forward, so I'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Just a question is, on the city care one, it's got just about written in every line, target excludes Spencer Henshaw. In the next one of these, it will be all...
Yeah, yeah. So we have a requirement on city care that they do a 1-year post-investment review, which is due in September. And then from that moment on, obviously, into the next financial year, the Spencer Henshaw results will be consolidated into there.
Okay, no, thanks. So the next one we will see will have it in properly.
Absolutely.
Good on you.
It's
Thank
because
you.
that was set in June last year, and they acquired Spencer Henshaw in September. So.
Thank you.
Aaron?
Well, Phil's kind of semi-answered around the straddle cranes, but isn't that one of the dangers in us transitioning when you have something like a subsidy on a biofuel, so people use that rather than the hydrogen has that switch has a 5-year payback, which on anyone's books is a great investment. But when you're up against something that's being subsidised, suddenly it doesn't look good. So sometimes when we think we're doing something that's good and green, like a biofuel subsidy, has unintended consequences that it never stacked up, and now transitioning to other things is. So, I mean, how do you guys look at that and weigh that up? Or is it just purely political, so you can't?
Well, I mean, the decision to offer incentives is a political decision. It's something that we respond to from a commercial perspective, and obviously if someone's trying to incentivise a certain behaviour and it works for you from an economic point of view, a financial point of view, and a deliverability point of view, so it improves the efficiency as well, then that's a sensible decision path to follow. It doesn't preclude you looking at other opportunities. So, I mean, obviously, you can see that incentives are by nature time bound. Otherwise, they're not incentives; they're subsidies. And you should be reasonably expecting that there'll be a date when that plaster gets ripped off, and you need to have a strategy in place to transition, and that's certainly part of LPC's considerations.
Yeah, and I saw kind of Phil chomping at the bit before on it, so it'll be good to see some of those options being explored more, and obviously he will have those conversations. Yeah. Thanks, Phil.
Right. You've already asked a question, Yanni. We're going to go into PX in a moment. So I'm going to move. If we have a seconder for this report. Oh, Aaron. Have we got any debate on this? Right, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. So now we're moving into PX. So resolution to exclude the public. Have we got a mover? Sarah, second, the mayor. All those in favour say aye. Against? It's carried. So we'll get all the public, and any staff not involved in this one to exit, and then we'll move back to Takaha Streets after that.
So we've finished questions. We've had the team work on the amendments, which is good. And we've got, so conflicted. Okay, so can everyone see that on the screen? That's the amendment. So if that fails, then we go back to the original that was proposed. So is everyone clear on that?
Sorry,
Oh yeah, so if that, I couldn't tell if you were joking. if that fails, we go back to the original. Yeah. Okay, so what would, do you want, you can ask a question if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the rationale for this amendment is. Yeah, I want to hear it again.
Well, let's just, it's all right, we don't need to have a big, yeah. So Phil's going to mention something, then we're going to put it to the vote, then...
More or less, so again, we've heard from businesses, property owners in that area, not all of them, that they don't want the street done yet. And I want to make it clear in the decision today, whether or not we do it, we do or we don't. At least we'll have a final decision. I think this is just noting the detailed design for that part of the west part of Litchfield Street. Will not start until the program's been reviewed, part of the long-term plan. But it will not stop the rest of it. It will not have to go back, correct me if I'm wrong, to the hearings panel, because the last thing I want to do is stuff that up and hold anything up there, because we've got to get on with it, because there's a lot of work to do to get it finished. That's the bit. It's amazing how the whole right round the whole shebang is such a large bit. This is such a small bit, and it's been the problem child.
I just wanted to raise a point of order, actually, because we did not hear that businesses wanted this to be delayed, and the staff would agree with that. Well, that he's said something incorrect.
I don't think that's, I think that's a debatable matter. So let's just put this to the vote. Well, yeah. So just who are you directing the question to?
Lynette.
So Lynette, can you come to the table?
Just
just let her come to the table. So.
Yeah. So if this amendment passed, would it change the fact that Litchfield Street was going ahead? So the amendment is only on when we do detailed design, it's not on construction. So it would still give certainty to everyone that Litchfield Street was going ahead, is that right?
So the amendment is proposing to put on hold the construction of Litchfield Street West. So we wouldn't start any work, including the detailed design, until the new programming for it had been determined as part of the LTP process.
Okay, so there's the potential for this amendment to actually defer Litchfield Street until after Te Kaha had opened, even if we didn't get on with it now. So there's the potential in this amendment to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right.
Andre. I'd really like to just put this to a vote so we can get to it. Is it a quick question? Okay.
So some businesses have told you that they'd prefer that work on Litchfield Street doesn't start till after the stadium's built.
I've heard from a number, and you'll probably know who they are, of businesses. There are some businesses down here there who really want it.
I don't know. I don't know who they are. But,
Yeah, there's some. Sorry, what's the question again?
So there's businesses that don't want work on Litchfield Street to start until after the stadium's built. I'm trying to.
My view is build all the stuff around the stadium.
Yeah.
Put this on hold until the stadium's built, and we see if we absolutely need it. We might be thinking way outside the square and maybe designing something that's not absolutely necessary on the road that is in very good shape compared to a lot of the other ones over in the east. So I just want to put the brakes on that bit of it. The rest of it has got to carry on. It's very important.
Okay, so let's just... Right, Melanie.
I'm just trying to establish which businesses don't want Litchfield Street to go ahead.
No, can we just stop? I think a question's been asked, an answer's been given. So I think the staff can probably leave the table now as well. So thank you. That's great. So let's put the amendment to a vote, and we're probably best to do a division.
Can we, Sam, before the amendment,
Yeah.
we want to do one debate on everything and then put the amendment so that we can actually...
Or is everyone happy with that? I'm happy if people want to just debate it. I mean, it's splitting hairs, but Or you could chair it if you want, Sarah. But yeah. So I'm just trying to. What I'm trying to do is get some consensus around the table on a constructive way forward. So if everyone would like to debate it once now, we can do that. Or if you'd like to debate it at the end, we can do that before we vote on the final thing. What would people prefer? Sarah's saying she'd like to vote on it, debate on it now. Great. Okay. So we'll just deep breaths, Melanie. It's okay. Right. So Melanie will start it, and we'll start the timer.
Point of clarity, just for my benefit, are we having one debate though? But
We are. Yeah.
In which case, you able to explain where we go after that amendment and what the process
Yep.
is?
So as I mentioned at the beginning, if this fails, then we have the one that Melanie. Basically, if this fails, it gets kicked out altogether, and we go back to what Melanie and Mark have moved and seconded, which is the hearings panel recommendation.
Yeah, which is
Great. So Melanie's going to start.
Yeah, like I said before, this has been a really long process, and I think the whole purpose of the decision that we've got today is to look at the stadium, which is obviously an asset in the central city. You know, I'm not the world's biggest fan of it, but I see that there's a vision that goes along with that stadium, and it's to have streets that are around it that invite people to it, create a safe space for people to be at, and not only during the time when we have events, but also from day to day. Litchfield Street's obviously the most contentious part of this. It's what we've talked about almost consecutively. And it's the businesses along that street, from what we heard, more businesses were actually happy for this to go ahead, option one, which was the one way, but this one I'm sure that they'll be happy with as well. And we did not hear actually that any businesses wanted a delay on this. The main thing that they were concerned about, like all businesses are when work happens in streets, is for the construction to not disturb their business from day to day from occurring. And we and staff are happy to work with them around that, and also to give them some time, hopefully, where they can have free space or how to work out when they can use the space outside on the street for their businesses as well. It'll benefit everyone to have a wonderful streetscape that's got trees and the rain gardens that have multiple benefits for it to be safe for people to be cycling, to be walking, and to have cars that will still be able to travel in both directions. I think we've come up with a brilliant result that was different to what was consulted on, but is a combination of what people talk to us about. It takes into account the mobility issues people talked about, and space for loading zones for the businesses there. It's just think about the vision of the city in the future. Do we want to have one street that hasn't been done because people don't want to spend the money on it now because they want hospitality to actually be in another part of the city, and to deprive the businesses in this area of the business that they deserve? So.
Thanks, Sam. So, Phil, with the greatest of respect, I'm struggling to see why a person who made his name on let's get stuff done is now saying let's get stuff delayed. Right? Like, we've worked hard on this. We have listened. We adjusted. Time is money, and to add time is to add money. The overwhelming volume of submissions supported an upgrade of Litchfield Street, and Litchfield Street is a tiny part of a project that has to be done if we don't want to be a laughing stock. I think the recommended option will be a game changer for the games we want to see, because our champion Crusaders will be championed by our champion city in a champion environment, and I think that's champion.
Look, first of all, I really, really want to express my thanks to the hearings panel that really took this one on their shoulders. I know it was a toughie, and like I think you said, you met 6 times, and it was very high media profile. It was a real big one. So thank you for all the work that you've put into that. And I know that there was division on the hearings panel at the beginning, and a lot of you favoured option 1. And I think coming back with option 3 as a compromise or an agreed position probably took a lot of work to get there. And Melanie, all credit to you for your chairing of that. I think you've done very well there. And we have increased the budget and size of the stadium. We've got to get this right. We've got to get it looking good and performing well. And part of the street stuff is actually safety for egress of the stadium. So 30,000 people pouring out at the same time. Our streets need to be safe. and they need to look really good. So I agree. I think it'll never be cheaper to do this, and I'm sure that street will have to be done in the not too near future anyway, Phil. So while I appreciate your sentiment in trying to save some money here, I'll be supporting the hearings panel recommendation, and I'm sorry that you feel we're dicking you around, but I think you've come back with option 3. I'll be supporting option 3, and I really do hope the rest of you see sense and support option 3, and let's get this thing moving. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you for your words there, Pauline. It was an arduous process, this hearings panel. Look back at it and think, well, was it enjoyable? I think it was in the end. But, I mean, I'm very proud of what we've come up with. We listened well to those that came and spoke to us and submitted. A lot of the submitters were saying, look, let's just get on and do this. We've got this stadium about to land in the middle of our city, which is another jewel in our crown, and we've got one chance to get this right and one chance to have it ready for occupation to and from this. And we've got the opportunity here to decide today to put it on track to give us what we need for, I think, pretty much everyone. And the fact that, you know, we've got the best of all worlds here in what's being proposed. And I'm hoping that those that came and spoke to us are happy with what we've come up with, because we've listened well to what they said. And the fact that we've got a two-way pedestrian-friendly option on the final approaches to our magnificent new stadium is a huge win. And to do this work later, once the stadium has opened, I think would be a huge mistake, because we've got one chance to get a really good impact with this stadium and to give everyone the premium opportunity to get to and from this stadium, and putting some roadworks in there after it's opened to then upgrade the street for Litchfield Street, I think would be a huge mistake. So I really would urge my colleagues in the council here to show some faith in the hard work that we did as a hearings panel, and show some real vision for the city, because we need to land this well today so that we can get everything on track, ready for the opening of that jewel in our crown, and give everybody the premium experience that from day one when they come to and from that stadium. Please get it on board, give us the tick of approval to get moving on this, and let's get underway and not procrastinate longer.
Thank you. Look, we've heard this project will actually pay for itself over the long run. I think based off the initial figures we've received from Venues Otatahi, I worked out that in about 12 and a half years, where that's factoring in subsidies for underground infrastructure, we've essentially paid. We've got a project that pays for itself. And then I also think, well, not only that, but why would we spend almost $750 million and then not spend a little bit to enable safe and proper access to our crown jewel? I think it's penny wise and pound foolish. So my preference initially would have been to go with option 1, which was the overwhelmingly publicly favoured option. But I really respect the work that the panel's done, and I'm more than happy to support them and their option to go with option 3. Again, I say thanks to the whole panel. As Pauline said, I know it would have been a difficult and a tough process. Thanks again to Melanie. You always tend to get landed with the politically challenging and controversial subjects, which is really just a sign of what your colleagues think about you, positively, not negatively, I must say. Again, I say thanks, and again, I also agree with the Mayor's words, if not his amendment, and I think we should get on and give this project certainty here and today. So thanks again. Let's get it done, and let's actually save some money.
Kia ora. I have some sympathy for your amendment, Mayor Phil. I think largely it's been driven by concerns around costs, but I do think that there's greater merit in progressing the package as a whole, and as I think Pauline has said, that it will never be cheaper to progress this piece of work. The piece that I'm really struggling with is the 10 kilometres per hour, that component of Litchfield Street. The vehicle movements around our city are very challenging as it is, and this is a recurring theme that I hear And being a councillor, it's one of the things that people like to talk about is the central city traffic movements. That aside, I'm so excited about the Te Kaha project. I really am. I think there's great potential, and I recognise the need to activate the spaces in the surrounding streets. I like the reference to the crown jewel. I think it is one of our crown jewels, and similarly, like your reference, Councillor Peters, around we've got one chance to get this right. So I have great hopes for our city in this regard, and I think we're aiming to be the best event space in the country, if not the Southern Hemisphere. So the improvements to the public realm are absolutely vital to the success of this project as a whole. I really appreciate the work of the hearings panel. I concur with the comments that have been made in relation to that, and not just the hearings panel, but also the staff and the way that you have worked, particularly the way that you've worked to accommodate the concerns of the public and of the business and of the submitters. So I really applaud you for that. Unfortunately, in doing so, with option 3, we do come up with a greater expense, but that's something we're just going to have to live with. I think on balance it is unavoidable for this project. On balance, I am minded to support the recommendation. I've really struggled with it, but I'd like to just note, please, my displeasure around the 10-kilometre an hour aspect, which again is unavoidable if we're looking for a safe pedestrian space. But I'd just like to record that. Thanks.
Sorry, is the microphone on?
Sorry.
Yeah, Mike, yeah.
If we talk to the public or do a consultation, if we get 4,000 submissions, it means we've heard from 1% of the population, and of users of this stadium, miles less than that when you consider a lot of users will come from outside of Canterbury and even from overseas. So saying that we've got overwhelming support for anything is quite a stretch of the imagination. Access to events is a key part of an experience, and anyone here that's been to anywhere in the world and gone to a particular event and getting in and out is not much fun. It kind of leaves a bit of a sour taste in your mouth. If we get this wrong and we don't get and we assume everyone's going down, well, a big chunk are going down Litchfield Street and they're going to use the buses and going to use the car parks and all that, and it takes them an hour and a half to get home back to St Albans, when they could have probably walked by then, but we know people are too lazy to do that, so they will try and drive or use a bus or something. If that's a bad experience, it will harm Te Kaha. It will not help. Yes, the streets immediately around it have to be fantastic and usable and accessible, but do I have confidence in what we're doing here? No, I don't. I don't actually have confidence in our planning, how people get to and from the stadium. The immediate paths around the stadium, I do have confidence in. I like that design and what we're doing there, and there's some really good aspects to it. Litchfield Street, I support Phil. That doesn't need doing. Most people, and I'd more than happy to take a wager of anyone, I believe will be going down Cashel. It will have the numbers over Litchfield. I can almost guarantee you that. And so that's already done. And so I think we should get the essential work done now and not spend that money on Litchfield. We should take a wait and see approach, because I think at best it'll be a tart-up to make any minor changes based on people's behaviours. So this was an arduous and contentious decision and, well, hearings panel, and you might want to stop and think for a minute why that might be. Sometimes, and our survey results tell us every single year, there's a lot of people in this city don't have confidence and don't like the decisions we make. And we're going to do a whole lot more here, that there'll be aspects here that people don't like and don't understand. So yes, they will always be contentious. If you don't like that, don't be at this table, is the real key message there. Groan if you want, but we all put our hands up to be here. And some people, and I'll even take my hat off to Sarah here, she will often fly her flag. She was against the stadium, but she put her hand up and said, that was my position, and I was happy. Oh, sorry. Oh, so you were for the stadium. Sorry, she was for the stadium. I'll take that back.
So I appreciate, so let's just stop. Aaron, that's not correct. So can you just withdraw and apologise?
So she voted for the stadium?
That's not what you
Okay.
said. Yeah. So can you just withdraw and apologise? I'd like to move this along.
Okay, I withdraw whatever. and apologise for all of it. For misrepresenting Sarah's position. She voted against the funding increase, she voted against the funding increase that supported the stadium.
All right, we've cleared that up. So that concludes your debate. Thank you, Aaron.
Cool.
Yanni.
Well, I lost time, Sam.
No, you didn't. No.
Okay.
Aaron. Yanni, sorry.
Oh, yeah. First off, can I thank the hearing panel and the chair, Councillor Coker, and the staff for, without doubt, our staff have worked incredibly hard to try and give us as many options as possible and to answer many, many questions that myself and others on the hearing panel have had. And I can say, without doubt, people in the city are very excited about what we're proposing to do. Even the good people in Hornby have come and said, please delay projects in our area and put your money into this central city to make it a lovely place for us to come. However, I just really struggle with the concept here. Now, putting the process and scope around Park Terrace to one side, I do believe the way in which we have used low-cost measures to change the streetscape is actually a really good way of doing things. It gives us an ability to do things in a cost-effective way and to change things based on usage and discovery. So in my view, we should not be doing the permanent now. We have enough other priorities in the city where our basic infrastructure is failing and is in a terrible condition. We've now recently discovered that the earthquake patch repairs that we had done are failing on top of the backlog of the pre-earthquake renewals that were deferred that are still required to be done. Many of those streets are in the east and are in places like Bromley, who are being overwhelmed with a number of issues. So in my view, these street upgrades we simply cannot afford. Doing reactive renewals and repairs is way more expensive than being proactive in fixing the munted streets now. Lichfield Street is not munted. It is in excellent and good condition and does not need to be gold-plated. It feels good to do the shiny and new, and of course, if you ask people if that's what they want, they're more likely to say that they do. It's like offering a Ferrari or a Fiat. Most people are probably going to choose the most expensive and the flashiest, but both will work and get the job done, and we should go for what we can afford rather than what we can't. In my view, the sensible thing to do is put in some transitional low-cost measures now, wait for the stadium to open, see how people use it, and then tailor our approach based on what happens rather than what we expect. One of my fundamental concerns with the design of this is that Cashel Street should be the pedestrian street. We've already got a pedestrian mall there, and we've got a whole bunch of people that I think are going to come in from the east where we're doing very minor sort of improvements when that could be one of the biggest challenges that we face. So, I support I support us doing a low-cost approach. And I just want to finish with a quote from Edward de Bono. He says, in the future, instead of striving to be right at a high cost, it will be more appropriate to be flexible and plural at a low cost. If you cannot accurately predict the future, then you must flexibly be prepared to deal with the various possible futures. And I think, to me, that sums up my position on this very well.
Thank you. Te Kaha Streets project is going to not only make the area around Te Kaha Streets more inviting, more welcoming, and more effective for the stadium when it opens, but it's going to be a new neighbourhood. So there's going to be nearly 1,000 dwellings, so over 1,000 people living in this area. And making sure that we revitalise the city, as we have promised to do, is going to be of a benefit for everyone who is living in the area day to day, all day, and not just for the few times a month or a week that the stadium is opened. This is a project that is not simply for the stadium and for sports and concerts. And yes, the businesses who are in Litchfield Street were in majority in support of this project. Those who were concerned, it was because they were worried about the construction period, and they were worried about the time that would be taken away with roadworks outside their business. The one thing that they said super clearly to us, don't do it twice. You're going to have to come down, you're going to have to dig up those pipes to make sure that the stadium has a water supply and that it can get the wastewater away. But please do not come back again and upgrade it, because that will impact our businesses twice. Businesses in other parts of the city expressed concern, and I understand that. There's a fear that with a rebuilding city that we won't have the population, or we won't have the mojo, if you like, to bring enough people into the central city to cater for more businesses. So businesses in other parts of the city where we already have a really high quality public investment, along Cashel Mall, along Riverside, where businesses are thriving, they are worried that if we do the same in another part of the city, it will dent their share of the pie. But what we are doing is growing the pie. We know that when people come back into a revitalised city, that Te Kaha is there, that we've got more people living in the East Frame, these businesses will all see an uptake. It won't just be split the same pie. One thing that we hear a lot when people don't like the outcome of a consultation is that they bash the process, and that's what we've heard today. What I would say is that if you want to be involved in influencing a decision, if you want to be involved in listening to the people and making sure that things go properly, then you should involve yourself fully in the decision-making process, and not bash your colleagues constantly and call them predetermined. I'll note that on your social media you did, Councillor Keown, say that if the hearings panel came back... Oh, bugger!
I move an extension of time.
Yeah, declined. Andre? Yeah.
Thank you. The key thing we've heard for the stadium for a long time now is get on with it. I don't think people are keen to see us rip up the roads to do necessary water work now and then rip the roads up again in a few more years, which will cost more and cause a massive amount of disruption to businesses and users of the stadium. Likewise, with delaying Litchfield Street, the waterworks have to be done anyway, so I can't see how the businesses would be keen for us to rip the roads up to do the waterworks, but then come back and wrap it up again a few years later once the stadium's open and they're trying to have their businesses activated by then. Option 3, I think, makes sense. It looks more accessible, particularly in terms of pickups and drop-offs. And if the area is activated well, there's going to be a lot of pickups and drop-offs from Ubers, particularly late at night. That does need to be an easy process. I have visited many stadiums and arenas in different parts of the world, and most of them are in a location that sucks. You leave the stadium, you walk and you walk and you walk, and it's a long time before you actually come across hospitality businesses. It may be a long time you're just walking to, it might be a train station. So to actually be in an area surrounded by hospitality businesses is going to be a different and excellent experience compared to other parts of the world. Plus, it's going to have a roof, and plus it's going to have good acoustics. We've really got something going for us here. I think we would be an international embarrassment if we open up the stadium, we've got international visitors there, we've got international media there, and they see this world-class stadium and it's surrounded by road cones and bunged up roads. I think we would look quite silly that we decided to worry about the roads around later. It's not going to give us an impression of a rebuilt city that's ready for business and ready to rear and go. I join Victoria and not being so comfortable with the 10k zone. So I would like to be able to vote against the 10 kilometres separately if I can. And overall, I do not want to be back here in several years' time still debating the stadium and its infrastructure around it. I'm keen for us to get on with it. Thank you.
I'm hearing what everyone said. It's good. The stadium is going to be a jewel in our crown, but at this point, I agree with Aaron and a number of other people that I've talked to outside here that I feel that Cashel Street's going to be the main way for pedestrians, especially to get in and out of down by the terrace and walk. And, there's tons and tons of room there. But anyway, I just didn't want to waste money on something, just Litchfield Street. The rest of it's great. That is not necessary at this time. But I can't. One of the other things, I can't actually see why option 3 is costing an extra 1.2 million. I struggle with that, but it is the best option and it is far better than option 1. So if mine doesn't fly, I will be backing option 3 because I'd hate to see option 1. Thank you.
I just
Yeah, just really briefly from me, Mel. I'll support the mayor in deferring just that bit of Litchfield Street, because fundamentally I don't actually see there's a problem there at the moment. But I mean, look, I think just to credit to Mel and the team, it's been a really good hearings panel. We worked together on Hagley Lights, and Mel plays it with a pretty straight bat. But fundamentally, I come back to the same thing: is a very straight bat, not a pretty straight bat, a very straight bat. But fundamentally, I come back to I couldn't live with one laning that street, so I'd settle for option 3, 2 lane. I kind of agree in terms of the cost escalation, and I won't go into it here because it's probably publicly excluded, but there are some estimates around contingencies and stuff that seemed very, very high for the little bit of work, so I'm just not yet convinced. I guess what I'd like to see is that the price come back from that. I suspect it probably can, given that some of the estimations in there are the way they are. But look, all in all, I think the hearings panel have done a very good job to get to a conclusion that is ultimately seen as the compromise. But I think, fundamentally, if Phil's fails, I would back it as well, because I don't want to see that street one-wayed.
Thanks for the support and the debate from everyone. I just wanted to finish up just to note that we've got Councillor Scandra and Barber who are conflicted because Venues Otatahi submitted on this, and they are part of our council, and they will be running this vocation, and they will be responsible for making sure these events run smoothly, and they wanted option 1, and option 3 is pretty close to that, and that is what, as a council, we should be supporting, because that is what VO want, and it makes complete sense. But thank you for the debate. I think it's been very well rounded, and I will be glad to see the back of this.
Until we have to debate the budget escalation in a year's time. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll put the amendment. Oh, so 2 things. Victoria and Andre flagged the 10k an hour thing. The team have picked out the exact resolution, so we can note that for you on there. So what we'll do is, I think it's easier just. Do we want to have a division? And you, yeah. Do you want to have a division on the amendment, or just note the 3 or 4 of us that are for it? It's probably easier. Yeah. So if we put the amendment, which is Phil's one, so all in favour of that say aye. Aye. Well, that almost sounds carried, but it's probably lost. So there's. Yeah. Yeah. So if we could put the chair of the hearings panels in favour of that, no. Okay. So against. Okay. That. No. Yeah, that's lost. Great, so that's lost. Now, we'll take the collective lot now, noting that it's 178, is it?
178 is the one that
is the 10 kilometre an hour one. So are you happy?
You can't do that, can you? You can't pick bits out and vote against
Previous advice.
Well, stop. Yeah. So maybe then, I'm not going to use the word I was going to. Let's get the legal team do it. Yes.
It's a hearings panel.
No, Pauline, just stop. We're nearly there. There's sort of a question being framed by the deputy mayor. Can they vote for that or not?
And note they're voting against 178.
Just wait. Yeah.
So they want to vote the whole lot in block, but can they note that point 178 that they want their no against that, just that one?
It's valid to be able to.
Okay.
It's contingent on the safety design. So.
Just stop. I just want to get round. I've got another question from Tyrone.
I think just on that 10, 20Ks thing, right? Like, I mean, there are. So my comment would be that
there's no comments. We've done debate. This is if it's a technical question, you can ask it. But if it's a debatable matter, I'm not having the question. So is it a technical question that the lawyers can answer? That sounds like a no. So let's.
Does the speed limit change the design?
Does the speed limit change the design? Yes. Great. Okay, so we're there, I think. So we're going to put that motion.
Can I?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I'm over it now. We have literally debated this.
I need to correct you. I didn't ask to vote against it. I said I wanted to note my displeasure.
That's all we're doing.
10k. So that's noting, but not voting.
So yours
against.
Noting. Are you wanting to vote against it?
Okay.
Right. So we're okay. So we're against it, but we're not voting against it. So we can just note that. So let's put the motion. No. So no, seriously, guys, this is a big decision for the city. I'd like everyone to take it seriously. So We're going to put the motion. No, Aaron, sorry. All in favour? Against?
Aye.
So that's Yanni and Aaron against. And we're going to note for Victoria and Andre and Phil around the 10k speed limit. And Aaron. And Aaron?
That was Aaron, Victoria,
Yanni and Phil. And Tyrone as well.
It's done. We're done.
So that motion is carried. Thank you very much to the hearings panel. And thank you,
Sam,
so
there's a number of people here were saying no to the 10k. I think that should go to a separate vote.
we've put the motion. The motion's been carried. I mean, yeah. Okay, so we are now going to close the meeting with a karakia, led by Kelly. Great, thank you. Thanks everyone online.